We got Chris Wade back here on the program, who's going to be in his second season with PFL. He's going to be taking on former CES lightweight champion Nate Andrews on May 23rd at PFL 2. Chris, how are you, man? Looking like you're getting some good weather out there.
I'm great. How are you? I know I'm happy because finally the rain has stopped. The sun is out. So I'm outside. I'm trying to get rid of this milky color of mine. Do some yard work. Feel productive today after practice. So
That's great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time as always. Good to catch up with you. It was a crazy year for you being part of that first PFL season. You fought 4 times. I know the year before that, you'd only fought the 1 time. Just looking back at the first season, what are sort of your takeaways from everything? Just, being, fighting as often as you did and the success that you had.
I mean, I was so happy to finally compete the number of times that I wanted to compete. I competed probably one less time because I wanted to be in that final fight, have that 5th bout. But I've always wanted to be used more often. I'm a healthy guy. I'm athletic. I recover well, and to be on a roster where it's pulling teeth to get 1 bout was just absurd. So it was just such a relief to actually be able to do what it is that I train and prepare to do, and not be held out.
And your last fight, really close. The rematch with Schulte, at PFL 9 in October. I mean, I think that could have gone either way. What do you take away from that performance? Because again, it was such a close fight.
Mm. Um, there's a lot of initially there was a lot of anger. There's a lot of bad bad blood. Um, but I've watched the fight a few times, and I'm not gonna say to you that I understand where those 2 judges were coming from exactly, because I don't. I think that if you get a takedown where you're almost desperate for that takedown and you bury your head and you do nothing with that takedown, you don't deserve the round. You're stalling, you're trying to win fights in a manner that people don't want to watch and people don't want to see. And I'm a wrestler. Listen, I'm going to that Beat the Streets Grapple at the Garden in a little while. I'm going to be in the city. Nobody loves wrestling more than I do, but he wasn't fighting to fight or to finish. He was fighting to stall and to try to advance around. So when you get out punched by or outstruck by over 100 strikes or so, you don't deserve that fight, in my opinion. Just because you walk forward and you're Rocky Balboa and you eat punches to the face, that doesn't mean you won, you know. But I'm not those judges. That's why this sport is flawed.
No, I agree with that. And you must have been, I mean, it sucks losing, but I mean, the feedback, I'm sure you got a lot of people telling you, you won that fight, you won that fight. Does that make it a little bit easier, or is it still, a bitter pill to
He's the
swallow?
one with $1 million sitting in his bank account,
That's
so
true. Yeah.
it doesn't
Okay.
it doesn't make me feel that much better. I mean, he can't even throw a post up without just getting totally dumped on. If they put a post up of him on PFL, there's 40 comments underneath about how he didn't win anything. So I think he has some soul searching to do this year too. He knows that second fight. I saw his face in comparison to the first fight. I saw him and his coaches backstage. He knew he got away with one there, and that I brought the fight to him that time. But I've been waking up every morning since then, just thinking about getting my hands on him this year. So we'll see.
And you got a great opponent to kick this season off. Nate Andrews, 15-1. Another guy like, it's funny. I think sort of the theme of PFL in a lot of cases are just fighters that weren't appreciated by the UFC. And I think Nate was another guy that should have got called up a while ago. And now here he is in PFL. So you're getting these really quality fights. What do you know about him? How do you feel like you match up against him here?
First off, I agree with what you said 100%. Exactly. Another one of these guys that has been deserving of a shot at the highest level, but the BS politics that go into that organization, they just, it's like Andre Harrison, all these guys, they just decide who they play favorites, who they can use, who they can ride. And the PFL is a perfect example of that. That's not the case. You are going to be in control of your own destiny. If you have a good record and you've earned it, you're going to get that chance for that top level pay, for that belt, for that championship. So I think he's put his time in. Obviously his record indicates that he is a really well-rounded fighter, and I'm not taking him lightly. Last year I took Natan lightly. I was coming off a little bit of a hangover with everything that went on with the UFC, and I regret that. I think I told you in an interview, like I thought I was gonna just have my way with the guy, I'm not going to overlook this guy. He's coming out hungry. He's got an opportunity for money as well, and it's who wants it more.
Training camp, anything different for this, this camp as opposed to other ones, or is it just business as usual, training with the same guys out in New York?
No, this camp's different. I've been lifting a lot more. Strength and conditioning has been a lot more of an emphasis. I said to myself after the last fight, how do you strike someone clean like over 100 times, and he only gets wobbled like once or twice, and he's not on the floor? That's unacceptable to me. That means that I'm not putting my body weight and my not getting my legs involved in my strikes. So I went back to the drawing board. I've been boxing. I've been trying to work on getting my feet underneath me, my footwork, and I've been working on my power, just trying to get everything incorporated. I know I have it. I just need to put it all together, and that's been the emphasis of this camp.
And how about the cut? How's that going ahead of this fight?
My weight cuts are this is I would say the same as last year. My weight cuts are always pretty good from my wrestling background. I don't mess around. I always keep my numbers where they need to be time wise. So right now I'm sitting in a really good place. Weight's not a concern at all. I'm fighting at home again, so it's even less stress on me because I have my own gym to go to. I know where I can go get my workouts in and make weight. So the weight is a non-issue.
But I'm sure the downside of it too is that people think you're Ticketmaster and they can just get free tickets, right? Do you still get that in your career?
Yeah, I get that a lot. It doesn't bother me. That's been a question I got a little bit. It was like, yeah, but it must be annoying, people asking you fight week for tickets, and it is what it is. I can send a text back. That's not a problem. It doesn't bother me at all. But I do have to forward a lot of people to Ticketmaster. They think this is Ring of Combat where I'm walking around with a stack of tickets. I'm
Right.
ringing people up and I'm selling. I'm like, yo, you got to go to Ticketmaster. I'm sorry, but nah, it's okay.
Who's going to be in your corner for this fight?
So this fight will be LaFleur, my BJJ coach Greg D. Pasquale, and my wrestling coach Kyle Sermonara.
Nice.
Who,
Okay. That's
yeah,
good.
he's got a lot of higher level guys that are training with him on the island in wrestling. So they were in my corner last time, and I really like the way that they tell me how it is. They tell me if I won a round or I didn't win a round. They don't sugarcoat anything, and that's what I want when I'm in there. I don't need like kick his ass and that kind of stuff. I need real on the fly info that's going to change a fight or swing around, and I need to know where I stand in the bout, and they do that for me.
How do you see this fight unfolding on May 23rd?
Well, you saw how I started to fight at the end of last year, right?
Right.
So um, I think that my mindset as a fighter has totally changed. I'm not fighting not to lose anymore. I'm fighting to put it on people. So as soon as they ring that bell, I'm trying to end the fight. It's just going to be a blitz.
Looking at this year's class, I mean, obviously, number one priority is get the trilogy fight with Schulte, like you mentioned. But is there anyone else you're looking at in the tournament this year, and you're like, man, that's tough opposition, or anyone you're sort of? I'm sure you're keeping an eye on the roster.
Yeah, I think they stacked up the lightweight division. I was looking at the roster, and there's maybe like one guy who it's like, all right, I feel like I got that fight, no matter what. But all the other guys, you're on your toes. There's a lot of depth there. Lightweight always has a lot of depth. You know that with any organization, it's probably the deepest weight that there is. It's the toughest weight to win in. But I like that. I embrace it. I don't want to be somebody in a weak, thin weight that wins. I'd rather win the best weight. And I think the PFL put together probably their toughest weight class in the lightweight division.
With this being on ESPN, and that's a huge plus this year, no pun intended. Being on that platform, have you noticed sponsors have been a little bit better, just a little bit warming up to the fact that you're going to be on such a big platform?
Oh yeah! As soon as I tell them that we're linked up to ESPN now and that this is going to be on ESPN, it just as soon as you say ESPN, their ears perk up. When you're explaining some of the other stations, no knock to them, but it just doesn't carry that weight in sports that ESPN does. As soon as I told them that, there's no questions asked. They're on board. They want to know what they can do, which they've always been supportive of me. But it's almost like I'm able to give them back something now too. It's been a long time that they've been with me, even through the Reebok and everything that went on there. So I'm a big Long Island guy, and they've always had my back, so I'm staying with them. I'm not going big with sponsors. I'm keeping it with my people here, and that's what I want to do.
We got to talk some baseball. Anyone who follows you on social media knows you're a big Mets fan. I don't have the luxury anymore. I think I can't remember if we've talked since I moved, but now if I want to go watch a baseball game, it's like a 3-hour drive to Seattle because I live on the West Coast now in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Before, I just step outside my door and the Jays are right there. But the Mariners got off to a hot start. They're not looking so good now. Your Mets, I see they're kind of hovering above 500. I know it's early. Just your overall thoughts on the season so far.
Well, they just slipped under. They're doing like what the Mariners did. They started hot. And this is what happened last year. They start hot. They get everybody hooked. They get you reeled in. You wind up at the stadium early. You're freezing your butt off over there. And then they go in the tank, and it's like the total opposite direction. Now they're in a free fall. And I just hope the new GM, Brody Van Wagenen, I hope that he sees what happened last year and he keeps his finger on the pulse and he makes some moves because we're hurt pitching. We have like our 4 and 5 starter. You can't get more than 3-4 innings out of them. So the bullpen's waxed already. It's just it's shades of 2018 when they think they won 2 games in May and their season was basically over. So I tweeted him today actually twice, like 2 paragraphs after last night's game, like, yo, make a move, make something happen. Don't let this happen again. I don't know whether he reads it or not, but I figure if I just keep yelling, hopefully maybe somebody reads it. I just don't see how they can't understand that you can't function this way. You can't run your bullpen out like it's the playoffs in April and expect that you're going to make it through the season. So I think he'll make adjustments. I think he's a young, savvy guy, and I think we'll have a different year than last year. But I'm a big video game guy, too, and I love that you're always playing the old school video.
Oh, that's like my side hobby. I love that. The retro games, yeah.
Every retro game you throw up, I'm like, I love that game. I love that game. You never play a bad one, ever.
Yeah, well, I'm lucky. So my latest side project, I know you saw it, is I took one of those arcade one-up cabinets that they sell at Walmart, and I basically took it apart, and there's like a tutorial online. Like, I wish I could take credit for all of this, but I basically replaced all the buttons, and I threw in a Raspberry Pi in there instead of just the regular board, so it's got way more games. And I was just playing this morning. I was playing Castlevania on there because they. What I like is like a lot of these arcade games, like they were made on the arcade a lot of these Nintendo games, they were made on the arcade platform, so you can play the arcade version, which is like slightly different. So I was playing Castlevania on there, and there's a little bit of difference in the game, so I've been getting through that. But yeah, it's my release, man. Yeah. Oh, you do?
Raspberry Pi too. Yeah, but I run it through my TV. I don't have the arcade set up, but I would love to have that eventually.
It's the same thing though. It's just it's basically like the joysticks are like attached through a USB port, and then you just throw it in, and it's a little bit of like kind of maneuvering and stuff. But it actually wasn't that bad. I just had to get my dad to help me and add. He had to drill some holes in there because it needs an extra button. But it's been a fun side project. So favorite, like what are some of your favorite retro games? Now that I got you here, what are some that come to mind?
I like I'm going back sport game wise, RBI baseball.
Oh, love RBI.
I love RBI baseball when I was a kid, especially on the arcade game, that the X-Men game that was out. Do you remember that one?
Oh, of course I do. Yeah. Yeah. That one was good too, where if you'd use their special moves, they would, you would lose life. So you had to be conservative about that.
Yeah. Also the old WWF arcade. I forget which one it was.
WrestleFest. I think that's the one you're talking about. That was the one with the Royal Rumble and everything. That was awesome too.
That one was amazing. And then, Punch Out. I love Punch Out. I love. Sorry, but I mean, every game you put up, I'm like, damn, I love that game. I miss that game. Every single one.
Well, and I'm sure you can relate too as a fellow father. Like, I don't get much time to play games, and I can't. These new games, like you have to invest hours and hours into them. These, I can go play like a quick 2 innings of RBI baseball, and then I'm good. I'll come back to it later or whatever. So it's not bad. But
I play a lot of Fortnite now. And
it's do you? Okay, yeah. I'm sure you have to negotiate that with the wife a little bit just to make sure.
I have to wait until my daughter goes to bed. Everybody goes to sleep. And then I wind up playing Nighthawk, from 11 to 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. But one game soaks up a half hour, like you said, and you can't get out of it. So they're a lot more time consuming. You can't just shut it off.
Before I let you go, one more quick sports question. Did you follow the Islanders at all this year? I mean, they're out of the playoffs now, but they had a pretty good run getting into the playoffs, and I thought it was so hilarious that they did so when they lost John Tavares, who went to Toronto, and here they are making the playoffs. They actually look pretty good. Did you follow that at all?
Yeah, being a Long Island guy, I did. I have to admit, I grew up a Ranger fan. 94, I was young. I was like 6, 7 years old. It was very impressionable on me with Messier and those guys. So I wound up a Ranger fan, even though I grew up on the island. But I used to go to all Islander games, especially with my friends, because it just wasn't feasible really as a kid to get into MSG unless your dad was taking you. My dad was a big Islander fan, so I went to a lot of Islander games at the Coliseum. And this year, actually with PFL, they did like a really nice promotion
I saw that.
involving me. I was there. I brought my daughter. We were up on the jumbotron, and the Islanders, they kicked ass that game. That was leading right up into the playoffs, and I was pulling for them. Hockey with me, it's not like baseball. Like I despise the Yankees, like legitimately. But with hockey, I tend to root for both teams. If we did play each other, I'm going to pull for the Rangers, but since we were out, I was pulling for them to go all the way. And I think that I think honestly, them not being in the Coliseum was the difference in that Carolina series. It was Carolina, right?
Yeah, that was Carolina. Yeah.
The first game was OT. The second game they had the lead, right? They blew it. So I just think with the noise and the support in the Coliseum, it would have been a different game. I really do. I think they got to do something. I know they're building this new arena in Belmont, but they should have just went back. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, well, the issue is that when they made the Brooklyn Stadium, like they didn't design it for the hockey fan in mind because it's like there's a part where I think you can't even see it or something.
I've
I
sat
heard.
there. It's obstructed. Yeah, they go into the corner and you don't know who has the puck. You don't even know who's down there, and you just wait for it to kick back out. You're kind of just sitting there like I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening, but it just doesn't get as loud in there either. It like
Yeah, it's not
it,
the same. It has that sort of old arena feel. I know what you mean about that. Yeah,
it
certain
eats up
arenas are
the
like that.
noise somehow. It just like evaporates. But when you're in the Coliseum, I mean, my daughter, when they would score a goal, she would like shudder from how loud everybody would get, the noise. She was so scared. But that's how loud, and the energy would just be crazy.
And it's certainly going to get loud on May 23rd, Chris, when you make your return to the PFL cage. We're looking forward to it. Appreciate the time as always, man. Just remind people where they can find you on social media. And if you have any sponsors or shout outs, the floor is yours, man.
Yeah, you could find me at Chris Wade MMA on Instagram and on Twitter. Actually, Twitter is C Wade MMA, I believe. And then my sponsors, check out Long Island Strong. The handle is L Island Strong. I have a part in that company. It's a great Long Island company. We support local charities, businesses, athletes. G Fuel Energy. They've been with me forever. They're the best. And New York Auto Giant, who's a very big chain of automotive car sales here on the island. They're awesome.